So there's been a lot of volatility over the past few days. First, you had Donald Trump's attack on Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, which was followed by an Iranian retaliation on American bases in Iraq. And this morning, it seems like Donald Trump is trying to de-escalate the situation, at least in terms of direct conflict. But with Donald Trump, you can never really be sure of his actions, which is why Bernie Sanders has been playing such a crucial role during this entire affair. And less than a couple hours ago, he tweeted this, where he basically said that the American people do not want war with Iran. They do not want conflict with Iran. They want investment in the things that will make their lives better. And it's up to Congress to support the legislation from Sanders and Ro Khanna to stop Donald Trump's unilateral, rash actions that may continue to happen with regard to Iran. This is so crucial because a lot of the Democratic primary candidates, the people running for the presidential nomination, have said things criticizing Donald Trump, but they've hemmed and hawed about it. They've tried to hedge their bets by saying, well, Soleimani is a bad guy, that this was a procedural error, that no one's going to be sad about Soleimani. But Bernie Sanders, the night this happened, right as soon as it did, cut to the core and said this was a terrible act by Donald Trump because it violated what should be the power of Congress to declare acts of war, and that this is the sort of action which will destabilize Iraq, Iran, and put the lives of Americans and many others at risk. Bernie Sanders absolutely nailed that point. And since then, he's been very clear. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, none of them have been perfectly on point with regard to opposing Donald Trump's war or potential war with Iran, be it in Iran proper or be it as a proxy conflict in Iraq. Only Bernie Sanders, among the main presidential challengers, has done that work, done it consistently, done it effectively. Because Bernie Sanders realizes, and AOC has noted this as well, that war is fundamentally a class conflict, and that the people who benefit from this war will be the rich and wealthy and well-connected, and the people that suffered in this war will be the poor and marginalized, both in Iran, Iraq, and among the American working class. They will be the people who suffer because of this. They will be the people who lose loved ones. They will be the people who are forced to go and fight this conflict. They will be the people who, because of the trillions and trillions of dollars spent on a conflict, won't get adequate funding for their healthcare and their education and their infrastructure. That's what's at stake here. Bernie Sanders understands that perfectly, and he communicates that effectively. Right now, there needs to be a swift movement that even if Donald Trump isn't looking like he wants to escalate at this moment, Congress, the Senate, and the House needs to work together to take the power of such action away from Donald Trump and rest it where it belongs, with the Congress. Bernie Sanders is 100% right in noting that when you do something like attack a country's top-ranking general, that's not a standard covert operation. That's not anti-terrorist activity. That is an act of aggression against another country, and those acts don't belong unilaterally to the president. So Bernie Sanders is showing that he's a true leader here, that Bernie Sanders understands that this war will not benefit the American working class, that Donald Trump's actions were wrong, that this isn't about hemming and hawing about if Soleimani was a good guy or a bad guy. The actions are wrong regardless of who the actions were taken upon. Bernie gets that in a way almost no one else in the major Democratic field does. This is yet another sign, guys, that Bernie will make the right decisions when he's president. that when Bernie Sanders is president, he will not take rash actions that put the lives of Americans and of other global citizens at risk. That if force is necessary, you can damn well be sure that Bernie Sanders has exhausted every single last alternative. We know that's not the case with Donald Trump, and we know that unfortunately that hasn't been the case with past Republican and Democratic presidents. But with Bernie Sanders, you know that if he's going to send the working and middle class people of America into a conflict, he has done everything he can to avoid it, because he understands that those sorts of conflicts never benefit the American working people and are always rigged to benefit the elite of the American society in terms of politicians, financiers, military contractors, and on and on and on. Bernie Sanders understands the class interests of conflict. And because of that, he's perfectly suited to be a president that will stop those conflicts whenever possible, because they don't serve the interests of the people he represents, which is the American working class. So it's imperative at this stage, Sam Seder noted this last night on CNN, that American progressives unite in this moment to de-escalate this conflict. Because if we don't do it now, we're going to be doing it for the next 20 years. And we have to de-escalate this in the short term through, yes, protests, and yes, making it known to our constituency representatives that we do not want conflict with Iran. But most importantly, to support the legislation of Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna to ensure that the power of such conflict is taken away from Donald Trump, a man who has shown he cannot be trusted with such unilateral power.